Okay, great. Okay. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome again to our Get Beyond Programming workshop. We are so excited today, especially that today the conversation, it's all about parents, it's all about our children. It's so amazing and we are so happy. And again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everybody who has been, attending this workshop every Saturday, whether you came one time, twice, every single Saturday. We appreciate a lot your support. And today it's gonna be a beautiful day. I am with Nadia Maniraho. I'm with Shayle Graham. It's so beautiful. It's a beautiful conversation. It's gonna be lots of participation. It's gonna be so many amazing activities and sharing beautiful conversation. Again, my name is Lydia Mbeshaho from Beyond the Veil. I think if you've been here, you're familiar with my face. And yes, Beyond the Veil, again, I'll repeat a little bit. We are here to raise mental health awareness in the Rwandan community. And our goal mostly is to educate, is to teach the Rwandan community, and actually even partnering with other Black communities, African communities, to find ways we can educate our people to learn how to take care of their mental well-being. Yes, it's one thing to tell people that there is help out there, but it's another thing to know, why do I need to access this help? It's another thing, for even those, for the professional mental health supporters to know what are our needs. So Beyond the Veil is here to address those needs, to really share with, our community, people who are willing to support us, to know what we really need. And also, you can always learn about Beyond the Veil on our social platform, on Instagram and Facebook. It's Beyond the Veil Mission, or Twitter, it's Beyond the Veil Rwanda. We always share information. Monday, we share tips that can help you to take care of your mental well-being. Every Tuesday, during this workshop, we share information on the upcoming workshop. And also on Thursday, we share educational posts. We, depending on the workshop, we pick that topic and then we explore it to share more so you can know in advance or what we'll be discussing. And every Saturday, we share tips on how you can take care of your mental well-being, self-care every Saturday. That's why today, if you have seen our post today, and you came in today living in Toronto, GTA areas, Hamilton, you have invited 2 people already. Send a chat saying that this is my name. These are 2 people that invited. For the first 2 people who are gonna share that information, you're going to win a food messenger, so I can share the information with you. And everybody from GTA Hamilton who's joining us today, you're gonna be able to go home with a self-care kit. We're just gonna need your email, or we're gonna share your information so you can email us. And for other people, I know we have friends, across the globe, we working so hard to find ways that we can share those beautiful gifts with you in the future. Be patient with us, continue to support us, and we are here. So without taking most of the time with our guest today, we're gonna start with our guest speaker, Nadia, and she's gonna take a few minutes. I really admire the work the Rwandan community from Hamilton has been doing, especially accommodating our children, bringing some activities to help parents. Last week, we started a group for ladies to work out. That's really amazing. And I've seen Nadia working in that area to really, come up with activities, for the community. I was so impressed. That's why I was like, she really need to come to talk to us today, especially they have another program, I think, coming up to help our children with homework as well. I'm not gonna say much, but Nadia, I really want you to speak from your heart in a way, to encourage our community and ways that you have to support us in all of that. Welcome, Nadia Maniraho. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you for having me today. Just wanted to talk a little bit about children's mental health challenges during COVID. I think as a parent, as a community partner. I think COVID-19, or the last year and a half, really, I can't believe it's been that long, has been challenging to say the least. I think it's really a great idea to talk about children's mental health. I think in our communities, sometimes we shy away from that conversation altogether. You know, you almost feel like kids are fine the way they are. We don't need to go in, finding out how they're doing. It's school and it's home, and we don't really dwell in their mental psyche or to see how they're doing. So I'm not a mental health expert. I'm going to speak as a parent, as a sort of a community organizer, so to speak, and how we've sort of addressed some of the challenges of COVID-19 in taking care of the kids so that their mental health is also looked at, because, mental health is overall health. It's not just one part that, we don't touch and then the kid is whole. So I just want to share my screen so that I can be respectful of the time. Just prepared just a small presentation so that maybe we can use that as a sounding board. So children are people too. I don't think it's a quote. I just like using it because sometimes we think that children are sub people or they're little people, but they are people too, whole with a body, spirit, and soul. And a lot of the things that we feel as adults, they also feel. And, it's important to give it the right attention so that we're not looking at it as, I remember growing up, parents don't necessarily have conversation with kids. Lydia talked about the Rwandan community in one of the posts, or maybe we could talk about, a lot of communities as whole. The kids are in one separate area and adults are in another separate area, and there's no interaction. And we fail to address some of the needs that kids are having because we feel like when they grow up. The other day, my daughter was telling me how a lot of conversation I used to have with her, I will say, oh, when you grow up, I will tell you. But there's a way to tell them where they are at their age, so even with COVID, I think it's important to address a lot of the challenges that they're facing and not pretending or thinking that somehow they will get it when they grow up. They're getting it at their age. It's just a matter of reaching them where they are. So a lot of my slides will say some challenges. It doesn't encompass all the challenges that kids are facing. It's some of the challenges that I have encountered through conversation with my own kids. Speaking of kids, I think it's interesting because I have a very big age gap with my children. I have a 17-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I sort of get the full spectrum of childhood. So I have different challenges with each one of them. But I just wanted to touch on some of them. Some of the challenges, speaking with parents, speaking with kids themselves, I really enjoy having conversation with children. I think they're so open and so honest. When you listen and they're willing to share, you learn a lot more than with adults. So oftentimes when I have kids visiting, I really like to pick their brains to see what they're thinking. So one of the challenges that came up a lot was fear. And fear encompasses a lot of things. It could be fear of COVID itself, fear of the disease. It could be fear of losing a family member. Some kids still have grandparents, maybe who are more at high risk. Some kids are worried that their parents as healthcare workers go out there and they can get sick and, die. Sometimes we don't talk about death with children, but it's important. Or even fear of talking or speaking up. Again, some communities, there isn't that open communication with parents. And so kids are feeling all these things, but they can't talk about it. I'll go through the challenges and then I'll go through some of the, sort of proposed solutions. It's not black and white. It's not just one thing, one solution, but I think it's for us to think outside the box, to think about what are some of the solutions we can offer. Anxiety. So speaking of mental health, all these things do come into play in affecting the kids' mental health, and it's important to address them. So anxiety, with everything that's happened over the last year and a half, we can see how even our own emotional health, health has been affected, going through the uncertainty of the time. So we're, especially with kids, they're in school now, and then they're off school. And so there's a lot of uncertainty that's going on. So it creates a lot of anxiety in kids. This feeling of powerlessness, this feeling of what's going to happen tomorrow, this fear of the future, this feel of, you have no control over it. So some of the kids are very anxious, and, it's important that we look at the signs for what they're experiencing and the anxiety that they're feeling, not minimize it, get them to talk about it a little bit more. The next point is isolation. So school, a big part of school is socialization, so it's going out, it's being with their friends, it's playing with their friends. So when they're now stuck at home with this confinement, there's a lot of feeling of, isolation. Some kids have maybe family members or other kids in the house, so it can be helpful, but there are a lot of kids who are also alone in the house. So how do we address that so that the kid is not isolated? There's social media and all that, but again, that's also another place where a kid can be lost if it's not used properly. Another challenge is family stress. So anything we're feeling as parents, again, whether it's people have lost jobs, there's again a lot of conversations that parents are having that kids are hearing. Sometimes we think kids are not listening, but they are. And the way that, especially in North America, the way that houses are set up, I think the walls are so thin that kids hear everything you're saying. So a lot of the stress is translated to them. And, we don't acknowledge it. And then so they carry on the stress that their parents are having, and we don't give them the platform to discuss it. The other important point is violence. Violence, whether it's physical violence, which is a big thing, whether it's, even domestic violence. So when parents are fighting, kids are also partaking in that trauma. So it's important to also acknowledge that. So going through all the challenges, it's not one size fits all. So it's for us as parents to identify what our kids are feeling, what our kids are going through. And again, it's not, all the kids are not feeling the same thing. So each kid is feeling what they're feeling differently. So it really takes a lot of work for us to identify what each kid is feeling so that we can address it and that we can offer the support that they need. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through a lot of the solutions, but at least I'd like to highlight some of them. I think some of the notes that Lydia and Beyond the Veil posted last week on their Facebook or social media platforms were talking about solutions on how to support kids in coping with, what they're feeling, whether it's, strategies on how to help them go through this, confinement or COVID-19 or really mental health as a whole. So, the first one is love. So it's important that we support our kids. Sorry, I think my screen. Okay. So when I speak about love, I'm talking about supporting the kids, being there for them as parents, not minimizing what they're feeling. Just talking to them that we are there, that we love them, showing the love, showing the support, showing that we're available to talk to them. And love sort of goes into support as well. And, supporting whatever activities that they want to do. Lydia talked about tutoring for kids or activities in the Rwandan community that we've been doing for the last number of weeks. I really wholeheartedly believe that kids are like sponges. They're there, they want to learn. We talk about school, like school has been such a challenge for kids and parents, all of us have now become really bad teachers. And, I'm sure a lot of teachers feel the stress of, having kids not handing their homework, the emails that they're sending to us and were not responding. I think at some point I shut down as a parent, and I asked my daughter's teacher to forgive me because I couldn't handle all that they were doing, but we're all doing our best. Supporting our kids is so important. I always feel like if I can't teach a kid something, it's not the kid's fault. It's the way I'm teaching them. And I know it's a lot of pressure, but I feel like if we support our kids enough, because it's not the teacher's job to get our kids to understand everything. We're partakers in it. So when my daughter tells me I'm having trouble with math, it's my job to either teach her or find her a tutor or some extra support. I was having a conversation with my 17-year-old. She's graduating in June. And she said to me, she said, Mom, I feel like what we're learning this year, a lot of kids are not even getting it. We're all going into university and we have no idea what just happened because each course is so condensed in 5 weeks. And I was so alarmed. I was like, what do you mean? And she was just looking at me like, oh, we're getting good grades, but we're not understanding anything. So I think it's important to have those conversations and support them, find the tutoring. You know, we're so blessed by community resources that we have, you know, Beyond the Veil and other partners who are willing and able to take our kids, help them through it. So take advantage of it. And, you know, talk about feeling, you know, I don't think growing up as a Rwandese person, the word feeling was so foreign. You know, you don't feel, you just go through what you go through. But it's important to feel and let our kids know that it's okay. Have conversations with I feel this way, like have them have conversations that start with I feel. Have almost like psychologist sessions where one sits on the couch and they talk about how they feel. Don't I think it's important to talk about our feelings and how they feel about this whole thing, and teaching them skills or how to cope with what they're feeling, you know. So if they feel lonely, what can they do? You know, we talked about self-care a lot. It's good to encourage our kids to also take care of themselves or to have self-care skills or strategies on how to cope with what they're feeling. So whether it's relaxation, kids can also relax. They're feeling isolated or lonely, maybe have a movie night. If they, you know, want to clear their mind, it's okay to go for walks. You know, you can go with them if they're small. So again, meet them where they are. If they're small, find strategies that work for them, but as they get older, adjust with each kid and each personality. So when you have a lot of kids, of course, it's more challenging because each kid is different. You cannot, you know, look at all the kids the same. So I think it's important to look at each kid and what their strategy for them. You know, when we talk about love languages, it's important to also look at kids and what their love languages are. They're people too. Again, I think that's something that has to keep coming up in your mind. Kids are people too. Routine is so important. It's hard to establish, but I think it's really helpful. So exercise, we started doing activities where we have kids exercising on Zoom. So we have to use the skills and technology that we have to connect, you know, so that they don't feel isolated. And having that routine really helps because it also helps with the uncertainty. If they have something to look forward to every Sunday or something that's happening every Saturday, it's important that there's something to look up to. I'm just going to go a little bit faster in the interest of time. When I talk about education, it's not for the kids, it's more for the parents. Educating ourselves. What are the signs that my kid is going through? You know, what are the signs for mental health for my child or any kids really in particular? So, you know, so that we can see it beforehand and we can also get them the support that they need. Sometimes it's, you know, it's the conversation that we're having, that if they're having anxiety about something, that they feel comfortable to come and talk to you. So educating ourselves so that we're better equipped to help them. Having conversation with our teachers, our resources, like this is happening, what do I do? Or how do I, not being afraid to use the vast array of resources we have at our disposal to, you know, parenting is a school that we don't graduate from. And I think we learn as we go. There's no guidebook that comes, but it's the resources we have around us. It's the other moms, it's the educators that really help us through this journey. Having the conversation. Conversation is not one way, it's two-way, it's listening. It's not just throwing information at the kid, because, you know, there's a position of power that we have, you know, with our kids. We feel like, you know, we can just tell them what to do, but listening to them, I think it's important to listen to how they feel, you know, and engage them in solution finding. You know, what do you think would work for you? What do you think we should do? So I think having that open conversation, an honest conversation, and a two-way conversation, but doing a lot of listening, because teachers speak to them, parents speak to them, a lot of other people speak to them. So it's good that someone is also listening. Kids deal with a lot of things. You know, when we talked about anxiety and online learning, there's also bullying. The other day I was reading some texts from kids that were so mean. I didn't think, oh, wow, you think that now that they're home, bullying sort of stopped. No, it still goes through online. So I think having that conversation, a safe place for your kids to come and talk to, and, you know, having that ongoing conversation and is really, really helpful, especially at this time, and really with any time. So there's a lot of resources. Again, some resources, of course, reach out for help. Reach out for help as a parent, as a friend. You know, Beyond the Veil has been great with setting up these sessions for us to think outside the box of the things that we usually do. For those living in Hamilton, there's a lot of community resources. There's a school, social workers. The teachers are a great resource. I feel like I don't even want to talk about teachers because they have so much going on already, but they're a great resource as well because they know your kid. There's CAMH for Toronto and area, but there's a lot of other resources that you can find online. And I'm sure Beyond the Veil can also help in identifying resources based on where you live. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to take too much of my time. I promise Lydia I will be prompt, but I'm really glad we're having this conversation, and I look forward to hearing the next speakers. Thank you, Lydia. I think I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yes, thank you so much, Nadia. What a great conversation. We do appreciate a lot what you do for our community, you know, being a mother, a wife, you know, working full time. I know that you went back to work and all of that. We do appreciate a lot. So we're gonna, you know, move so fast so we can use our time accordingly. So one of the things I like that you highlighted that, you know, as we think about love languages, you know, for adults, it's important that we think about our kids too, because they're human beings. It's really, really amazing what you shared. And the other thing, ask them how they feel. We always tend to really describe our kids' feelings. We don't allow them to express themselves. It is important that we ask them and we give them the space to express how they feel. Thank you so much. So without taking so much time, so I am going to welcome Shayle Graham. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, say so much, but one thing you have to know about her, she's an incredible, I don't know, an amazing woman. You know, she's a big, big part of Beyond the Veil. You know, I would just start by saying that she's also my mentor as well. You know, do learn a lot, so much from this lady every single day. I do appreciate a lot the work that she does for Beyond the Veil, for the community, especially the Black community, you know, for in the education system, you know, school board, it's a lot. One of the things, she's an educator, she's also a community advocate and anti-racism coach, you know, and not only that, she's, you know, the Beyond the Veil, you know, creative director and our treasurer. We do really appreciate a lot every single day. So I'm gonna welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're here to listen and learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia, for that introduction. She's always like trying to hype me up, honestly. We mentor each other, and it's just so great to be here and just be a part of this conversation, because I think that this conversation is absolutely necessary. We are, you know, in a position in a space in life where we need to be talking about youth, we need to be talking about children. Where my passions lie, we need to be talking about the advancement and the success and the well-being of Black youth in particular, and just what we are going to do to better support them so that they are thriving and so that they are surviving all the things that are happening. So I bring greetings. Today we are going to get into that, and just to begin with something that Nadia was talking about, about educators, and they have a lot on their plate, and using them as resources. And I can say, being an educator, yes, it's there's a lot of things happening right now, especially with global unrest and the pandemic, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our conversation, that have teachers feeling stressed and have them feeling stretched. But in addition to that, parents are also very much feeling the same way. And in addition to that, our kids are feeling the very same way. So I want to zero in the conversation on our children and our youth, and really thinking about how, thinking through it with you about how the systems that are put in place are really, impacting them, and how we are going to, address some of that. So we won't get to get into too much detail today about it, but we will get into, some points that will at least get the conversation going and get us thinking about what we need to be thinking about. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I'm hoping that everybody can see it. You can just let me know. All right. Okay, Lydia, how are we doing? You can see it?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, coming.
Just let me know when.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So this session today originally was supposed to be called COVID-19 and Mental Awareness in the eyes of children. But as I was thinking through the topic and really thinking about, Black children in particular, because Black children really statistically, it's being proven that out of all the racial groups, Black children are one of the lowest achieving racial group, especially in the areas of mathematics and in the areas of reading and literacy. So when I hear statistics like that, it's very alarming, because, we know, as a community, both here, both in Rwanda, and globally, that our Black children are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. So when we see rates like that, that really makes me stop, and it really makes me think, and makes me want to have more conversations like this one to unpack why that is. Why are we seeing statistics like that? And what are we going to do about that, or what are we going to demand? So in light of that, I reframed my conversation today, and the title that I'm choosing to go by today is Surviving and Thriving in the Eyes of Black Youth, and what that could potentially look like around conversation. All right, so before we begin, I think it's necessary at this time just to ensure that I'm, honoring the land on which the land in which I'm at least situated on. So I acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of the many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And as we're moving into this conversation, when we talk about race and racism, because that topic is often very sensitive and very traumatic and, comes with a lot of different experiences, we want to make sure that when we're having these conversations that we're framing them in a way where we can respectfully dialogue. So these agreements that we have here on the slide, if I could just direct your attention to that, conversation agreements are adapted and derived from Glenn Singleton's 4 agreements of having a courageous conversation. And the first agreement is staying engaged. So that's the first thing. So everyone, you know, participating in the way that is suitable for them, you know, just making sure that we're following the conversation and we're thinking through the conversation. And the second agreement is expect to experience discomfort. We are all coming with so many different experiences and, you know, expertise and knowledge. And so we're not always going to agree, you know, on things, and experiencing discomfort can happen when we're talking about these types of issues, especially if, you know, in conversations around Black people, Black children, Black youth, you know, if you don't self-identify as Black, you could feel uncomfortable about the conversation. And that is all a part of the process, because if we don't feel uncomfortable, we are never going to make any change or make any shifts. So this is actually a necessary part of the process. And the third agreement is speak your truth. Speaking your truth, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Just speak about what you feel and what you've experienced. And number 4, expect and accept a lack of disclosure. We don't have all the answers. You know, even as, you know, myself today in this conversation, I love my people. So I am here in this conversation with you, and I'm not positioning myself as an expert. I'm positioning myself on this learning journey with you so that we can each, you know, learn more and talk more and then do better for our children. So ultimately, that's why we're here. Why I bring up these agreements in this conversation is not just because I want to ramble on about how we are to talk about race and racism and issues of inequities, but really to talk about how we're governing our well-being as we're having these conversations. You know, Nadia really, I'm going to use what she said as a launching pad, just when we're talking about well-being, and we're centering well-being when we're talking about our children. And we need to make sure that when we are doing that, we are using frameworks that are going to help us better have those conversations. So even the way in which it's not just about what we're discussing, but it's also very much about how we're discussing it, and all of that tying into the overall well-being. Okay, so being, you know, the educator that I am, we are going to do this in a way that children would often think through a process like this. And for those of you that are helping to manage your children's academics and virtual schooling, you might be familiar with this software or this application. It's called Jamboard. And so we are going to use a lot of Jamboard today so that this conversation is something that is going to be interactive and engaging. And it's not just like I'm presenting and talking at you, but parents, you are also the experts actually on your children. And so we need you to invite you into this mix today. So I'm going to ask that I'm going to go ahead and copy this link address, and then I'm going to put it in the chat. And we are going to go through, all right, we're not there yet. We are actually going to go through this activity. So I'll put that in now. Okay. And we are going to go on to Jamboard. And once you get on there, I will go through it with you as to how we're going to use this today. All right. Okay, so When you arrive on the Jamboard, you should see this first page here, Black Youth Are. Okay, and the way Jamboard works, for those of you that have never used it before, you are going to make your way over to this icon over here on my left-hand side. And that will be, you can use a text box, or you can just use a sticky note, which is this icon here, which is what we would prefer today, but we'll give you options. Once you use the sticky note, you are going to write on your sticky note one word that comes to mind when you think about Black youth. What is that one word? And I hear that we have some Black youth in our midst today as attendees, and this is your chance to show off. Just tell me a little bit about what you think about yourself. You know, when you hear this statement or you see this statement, Black youth are. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that. And I won't put anything on the screen yet. Okay, so far we have somebody saying excellent. Okay, Black excellence is a thing. Yes. And we have someone else saying limitless. I like that. You know, we defy gravity. Even our hair defies gravity. Like we are limitless. Fearless. Okay, we'll take a few more. Talented. We'll do one more. Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. Smart. Leaders. Wonderful. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. Black youth, when I think about Black youth, I think about this word. And I'm gonna write it all in caps. When I think about Black youth, I think about resilience. And when the reason why I think about resilience is not because Black youth are not all of these other things, because they very much are. I think about resilience because I think about the fact that it is no secret that Black youth are facing a lot of challenges and systemic barriers and are experiencing this on a global scale. And right now, Black youth definitely, there is a cultural genocide happening with Black youth where our youth are being over-policed. You know, our youth are, being killed. Our youth are being underserved in school systems. They are underserved in policy. They're underserved in procedure. So when we think about Black youth and thinking about all the things that Black youth are able to achieve in this day and age, even though experiencing all of these barriers, I think resilience. I think that Black youth are proving and showing that they are magnificent human beings. And in their awesomeness, they are excelling above and beyond, even though barriers are designed to keep them from doing that. So that's what I think when I think about Black youth. Is there anyone that wanted to, speak to their point about why they wrote that word? I'm seeing fearless, limitless, leaders, talented, smart. Is there someone that just wants to share? Like, why? Why did you write that?
If you guys want to share anything, I've allowed everyone to speak. You're welcome. This topic today, it's more about, engaging everyone in the conversation. Feel free to share your thoughts and ideas.
All right. So nothing yet. So we'll move forward, and we'll probably come back to it and work through it. Okay. We'll keep going. So when I'm thinking about Black youth, let me see. And somebody was scribbling on my slide, but that's okay. We'll leave it there for artwork. All right. Black youth are not. When you see this statement, what do you think about? Black youth are not.
Oh, guys, remember to add your answer on the Jamboard.
Yes,
there's
on the
a link
Jamboard.
under the chat. You can open it and, you know, use the sticky note to add your answer.
So the sticky notes are over here on this side, on the left-hand side. And you can just click it and then write your response. We just need some one-word responses. Statistics. Okay. Any more? Lazy. Okay. And we'll take one more so that we can go through this and unpack this. Okay. So not lazy, not dumb, not statistics. Okay. Let's speak about this a little further. So I'm going to draw our attention over here to this. They are not predictable. Yes. Whoever wrote that, yes. They are not predictable. Filled with creativity. So we're going to move over to this sticky note here around statistics. So when I think about Black youth, I think about Black youth are not immune. And by immune, I really mean that the effects, the global effects that are happening, Black students are not immune to that. When I think about Black students not being immune, I think about the fact that there is this idea that, you know, because our kids and our youth are in schools, that is a safe space for Black children. And the reality of the situation is that that's not necessarily true. When we think about school environments, we are thinking that, you know, school environments, I mean, you have caring teachers, you have, and I see somebody else writing, thank you, sluggish. We have caring teachers. We're thinking that the system is set up for Blacks, for our children. When you send your children to school, you're thinking the system is designed for them to be successful. And so therefore, if they're not having success at school, there must be a problem with your child, not necessarily a problem with the system. And as Black parents, it's important and Black community, it's important for us to begin to critically think and question the systems that our kids are in. So the systems that our kids are in, make no mistake about it, is just a microcosm. School is just a microcosm of what's going on in the larger context of the world. The same realities that you face in the larger context of the world are the same realities that students face or kids face at school. And so when they go to school, they're not in a bubble that keeps them under a shield or protection from racism. That doesn't happen, right? They're not in a bubble that keeps them separate from oppression. That doesn't happen. It doesn't keep them separate from anti-Black racism. They're still being impacted by those entities even when they are at school. So for that reason, I want to talk a little bit about knowing that, right? What are some of those societal factors that are impacting our children so that when they hit the school system, they are feeling a lot more stressed out. They are feeling a lot more undervalued than their other counterparts that identify with different racial groups. And so I want to draw our attention as I'm talking to a strategy that Ontario has put forth. I know for those of you in Rwanda, this doesn't apply to you, but I think the information is still relevant and valuable. So the strategy for the Ontario government is the Ontario Black Youth Action Plan. And what I'm going to read to you right now is really from this report for this Black Youth Action Plan Ontario is developing. And over the past 2 years, or the 2 decades, sorry, despite improvements for most Ontarians, social and economic development outcomes for Black Ontarians have not kept pace. So the province is admitting that they have not done all that could be done to support the success of Black youth. So the response to that is the Black community is making contributions to the cultural life. As we know, I feel like with the Black community, we are the epitome of culture and of the epitome of inspiration. That's just how, you know, I feel. And so a lot of what we do as a Black community, as the different Black communities, I should say, inspires a lot of what the world does. We're just, as you know, as the kids say these days, we're just that lit, we're just that dope, and that's what we do, you know? We inspire. And people from around the world, different communities, you know, want to be like us. And that's beautiful. I love it. It's great. So Ontario is recognizing that the Black communities across Ontario continue to face, you know, historic and systemic and structural barriers that impact Black children disproportionately. And disproportionately really is just a term to say, out of everyone else, we are being impacted the most when it comes to these barriers. And I see somebody just added criminal, right? Because oftentimes our Black youth, thank you for that point, are not being seen as, you know, you're innocent, the way you as parents view them as your innocent babies. The world is not seeing them that way. That's not the way the world sees them. They're being criminalized at very young ages. You know, we're seeing that. We're even seeing our young Black girls being sexualized at very young ages. So a clear example of this is summertime in Toronto. We see 14-year-old girls from different racial backgrounds walking around with very short shorts. No one says anything about that. But the minute our very curvaceous Black girls at age 14 are walking around with the same shorts, all eyes on them, everybody has an issue with it. They're being sexualized. Why? Why is this? So when we talk about statistics, let me get to that because I could go onto this topic all day and continue talking about it. Let's first talk about poverty, okay? And why I say Black youth are not immune. Poverty is disproportionately impacting the youth in our community. In 2016, according to this Ontario Black Youth Action Report, 27% of Black children were living in low-income situations. Catch this, compared to 14% of children in the rest of the population. So that's 27% of Black children in comparison to 14% of Black children. Okay. Let's talk about family structures. 41% of children and youth in care of the Children's Aid Society Toronto are Black. That is almost half of the children in CAS care, Children's Aid Society care, that are Black children. And I want that to sink in for a minute. Black mothers and fathers, grandmothers, aunties, uncles, godmothers, cousins are some of the most loving, nurturing people that I know. So when I hear a statistic that 41% of children in care are Black children, that is alarming for me. That is painful for me. We'll move on. When we talk about school, although 94% of Black youth ages 15 to 25 say that they would like to get a bachelor's degree or higher, only 60% think that they could actually go ahead and achieve that. So we have a lot of our Black youth saying, you know, I'd like to go ahead and you know, pursue post-secondary education, but I don't know how possible that's gonna be. And again, as an educator and a community advocate, that's concerning for me, because I feel that all Black children should feel like they can achieve everything in this world that they want to achieve. And lastly, let's talk about work. Across Ontario, Black youth ages 15 to 24 are unemployed at nearly 2 times the provincial rate, nearly 2 times. So because of all, you know, the historical events that have taken place, as Black children, our youth are already coming into this life at a deficit as a collective. I'm not talking about individuals where, you know, you have some families here and there that have generational wealth to pass down to their children. I'm talking about us as a collective. So there's already a deficit there when we think about that. And think about that, you know, many of our Black youth don't have parents that are passing down businesses to them and passing them down avenues to create generational wealth that is independent of an employer. A lot of Black youth don't have that. So even when we think about this idea of work, it's bad enough that we don't have this being passed down to us and our children, let alone the fact that we are also being disproportionately disadvantaged when it comes to employment. So that becomes a question of, so how exactly, you know, is it designed or set up for us to succeed, right? If this is the case, we're not inheriting, you know, a lot of the pieces or elements that we need, or the financial capital that we need to be successful. We're not inheriting that. And in addition to that, when our Black youth are out looking for work, they are not necessarily being the ones that are being employed. So just thinking about that for a moment. So we can conclude then that yes, Black youth are not lazy, they're not dumb, they are not criminals, and they are also not immune. This is something, and I want to position white supremacy as a virus, because this is the virus that is impacting our people, and this is the virus that is impacting our youth. So I'm going to, time is running and running and running because we only have about 15 more minutes, but I wanna get through some of this and get to the end. So when we think about this statement, Black youth need, and I want you to take a moment to think now about those statistics and who Black youth are.
Shayle, can you take the time to explain a little bit again how to use the Jamboard? Because I feel like there are people who are trying to use the pen that way. But thank you so much, everyone trying. I remember first time using it was a disaster. I understand.
No worries. I will explain it as many times as you need me to. So if you go to the left-hand side over here, you can click the sticky, and you can just write your one word there and it will show up on the Jamboard.
Yeah.
I promise you, by the time we are finished this presentation in 15 minutes, you will be a pro at using Jamboard. And now you know how your kids feel. They have to learn all this new technology. So advocates, Black youth need advocates. Okay, thank you. Black youth need reassurance. I'm loving that one. And we just need 2 more.
We have a lot. Be patient.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm appreciating the engagement, right? Because we need to be engaged in the conversation. Black youth need role models. Black youth need love. Black youth need acceptance. Black youth need resources. Somebody wrote Black youth need us. I'm gonna just put that in the middle. Empowerment. Okay. Safe homes. Supporting parents and communities. You see, Lydia, you don't even need me here. You have experts in the room. Recognition. Okay, one last one. Or we'll continue with this. Let's go with this. Okay. Now, when I think about what Black youth need, I think about, okay, compliments. So put that here. Keep adding and I'll talk as you're adding. When I think about what Black youth need, I think about affirmation. I think about what Black youth need. And affirmation is going along with some of these comments here, right? We can actually group them into the same categories. So recognition is a part of affirmation. Compliments, empowerment, acceptance, reassurance. That is all a part of affirmation. And the best way to do affirmation, justice, thank you. The best way to do, affirmation is through love. That is the best way to do that. Kids learn from people that they trust. And they often associate their love with trust. And so, okay, we're looking at equality here. And when I think about affirmation, I think about how structures could be designed and how learning environments could be designed so that Black youth are seeing themselves in curriculum, in instruction, in programming. So the way that educators program for them, the curriculum, the way the curriculum is designed, that Black kids are seeing themselves in all of that. So not waiting until years on top of years before a resource that's given to them to study in school has people that look like them, or people that are sharing their lived experience. So that's the first thing. When I also think about affirmation, I think about Black kids being affirmed in their diverse identities. All because we are all Black people, that doesn't mean we're all the same. That doesn't mean we have all the same lived experiences. So how are we structuring programming in schools, right? So that's happening. And parents, because I'm speaking to you today, how are you challenging the educators that are teaching your children to program in ways that your children see themselves? So are we waiting until Black History Month to bring up a Black scientist who has made contributions to medicine? Or is this something that's happening throughout the entire year so that our youth feel affirmed in their identities? How are we asking questions as parents and the community to challenge the type of programming that's taking place? When we think about the books and the resources that you have at home. What do these books and resources look like? Who do they have in them? I think back to, you know, even our little girls who receive toys and dolls and things like that as presents. How are you demanding from the other people in your life and your networks that they, when they're going to contribute something to your child's life, that is something that's positively affirming your child's identity? So are we giving our children dolls with blonde hair and blue eyes? Where are they seeing themselves? In the artwork that we have in our homes, do our children see themselves reflected in this? How are we doing that? Because sometimes
you have you have a charger?
Yeah, I told you I have a charger here.
Jadit, you're unmuted. So how are we doing that, right? So thinking about impact, I want us to really think about impact and think about, it's not so much about what we're saying to our kids. It's also about what we're not saying to them. What are we affirming without saying, right? When we speak to our youth about, you know, their features, their physical features, you know, are we talking about their hair in ways that are positive? You know, how are we referring to their physical attributes? How are we referring to their skin? Because the reality is when our youth feel affirmed and it's in love, and when they feel that we are celebrating truly who they are, the studies show that they do better in school. So these are more conversations that we need to have and that we need to think about. So I'm going to thank you for all participating on the Jamboard. And we're going to move into the rest of this deck.
And I have questions for you. So when you're
All
ready,
right, don't worry. I have a whole questions Q&A session.
Mm-hmm.
We can have a Q&A session at the end as I'm moving towards that. I'm just bringing up my my slides here. And I don't understand why my internet refuses to work with me today. But hey, we'll work through it. Okay, if you can see my slides.
Not yet.
Not yet, all right, what about now?
Okay, it's coming.
Wonderful. So now we're gonna make a shift in this conversation to, you know, Black youth succeeding. Okay, so the beautiful thing about Black youth is, despite all those challenges and those barriers that they're experiencing on a daily basis, the world is still witnessing manifestations of their brilliance, their creativity, and their innovation, and it's happening on a global scale. And as best quoted by Nelson Mandela, the esteemed leader Nelson Mandela, history will judge us by the difference we make in the everyday lives of children. And I feel like that's such a powerful quote, because the way that we work with our children, the way that we support them today, that is going to be a precursor to how, you know, how our future will look. So in doing that, right? And when we, you know, hit the future, what the present that we're in right now will be history. And what we're doing now, which is present to us now, but will become history, it is going to be crucial to the opportunities that get afforded to Black youth in the future. And we need to consider that. So I was thinking about an example of this, of some Black girl magic who, you know, someone who is, you know, has recently made history. And I thought about Amanda Gorman. And I thought about, you know, the fact that Amanda Gorman is now in her early adult years, but started her journey to greatness, you know, and to be able to, you know, be in a position where she delivered her inaugural poem, The Hill We Climb, at the most recent presidential election, right? Campaign period. And that she started her journey in her teens. And this for me is hope that what we are doing, the supports we are putting in place are going to make the difference, and that we are going to actually see change. And the more that we start to come and bring communities together cross-culturally. So I think about my background. My background is not Rwandan, but yet I'm here. And we're having this conversation together as Black communities united. And I feel like that's a very important thing to position for our youth. Because in order for us to gain any leverage, we have to do it together. Communities have to come together on a local scale, on a global scale, internationally, to be able to make the changes that we need to see. So the allyship needs to extend across borders. We cannot do this in isolation. We can't do it in silos. Speaking of extending and allyship and partnership in collaboration, community needs to partner with parents, who needs to partner with educators, who needs to partner with the most important people, our youth. Our youth know what they want, the changes they want to see. Our youth are experiencing racism and anti-Black racism as early as 3 years old. So when I hear conversations around, you know, oh, children are just too young, you know, to have these conversations, it isn't true. Because if I'm young enough to experience it, then I'm young enough to have a conversation about it. So with that being said, I am going to move into my last 2 slides here, and then we'll go into question and answer about some resources that you can access if you would like to, you know, learn more about how to engage in conversations and action about supporting Black youth. And so the Youth Rex Research Exchange, I found a very good infographic there. I'm going to pull it up so you can see it. So I found a very good infographic, and it really goes into some areas that as a parent community, you know, you can go, you can be involved in to create change. So the first one is nothing about Black youth without Black youth. And I mentioned that earlier. Number 2, communicate with youth, not at youth. How many times do youth express the fact that we're talking at them, we're not talking with them? We're not interested in their input. Number 3, reduce barriers and provide accessible information. I believe strongly in the power of knowledge sharing. Knowledge is meant to be shared. I don't think that anybody is meant to be the end-all and be-all gatekeeper of knowledge. I feel like that's something that we need to share it in order for us to build capacity so that we can better serve our youth. That has to happen. Number 4, create opportunities for storytelling and representation. I love the way Black youth represent and tell stories about themselves and their experiences and their creativity. And we see a lot of that on platforms such as even Pinterest, on Instagram, You know, our Black youth are blowing up all over social media platforms. But we also need to push so that there is positive representations of our Black youth in media. We don't always see that. Usually it's a lot of the same story. It's either Black youth are, you know, impoverished. How many times have we seen advertisements of, or even movies or television shows with representations of kids, even in different parts of Africa, in different countries on the continent, and it's one type of representation. And we see that a lot, and it's never a positive representation. Where are Black youth seeing themselves represented in areas of science and technology and engineering and mathematics? When we are showing examples or pictures of our youth, to our youth, of people in these professions, why are we often showing them pictures of old white men? Because again, that is the cultural virus of white supremacy that seeps in and plagues and manifests itself even without us knowing, a lot of times, or us being unconscious of it. Number 5, prioritize Black youth voices and develop Black youth partnerships, which is very much about what we're doing here today. So shout outs to Beyond the Veil about that. And then the infographic goes into 5 characteristics of organizations that meet the needs of Black youth. So that would be organizations such as, you know, Beyond the Veil and CARRY, right? Number 1, Black leadership and direction. Other people need to stop speaking for us. We need to be speaking for ourselves. And the reality for us is, if we're not at the table, we don't get spoken for. So we need to make that a priority. Number 2, diverse, authentic representation. We cannot just have one representation of Black identity on our organizations that sit on our organizations. We need to diversify those lived experiences and those social identities, because they speak to different types of people and different issues. Number 3, sustainability. We want to see, you know, the support for Black youth happening for a lifetime. We don't want this to be because there's a global unrest and that there's a pandemic, and considering the assassination of George Floyd, and we're thinking about, you know, oh, we'll just talk about it now and then it's over with. We don't want to do that. We need this to be sustainable. The conversations need to continue beyond this space, and they need to happen more frequently. Responsiveness and accountability is the next one. And last but not least, youth development, which is extremely important. Are we providing skills and training to Black youth that will empower them to move beyond their current realities? Do we have mentorship opportunities for them that is not just them being mentored, but is actually leading to a critical path that if they go through this mentorship, they will then become A, B, and C? Because there's mentorship out there, but is it a critical path that's leading to an expected end? That's the part that we're missing. And you can find this all in the resource, the links that are provided here. And just as I'm wrapping up, these are some links as well, and I won't go into them, but social justice books, if you wanna, you know, begin or continue talking about race and racism and inequities with your young children, socialjusticebooks.org has a bunch of books that you can engage in those conversations with. And even create a little library at home in your child's bedroom, or not even in their bedroom, but a space in your space or your house that has books like this that your children have access to. Beyond the Veil missions, of course, as we mentioned, great resource. Invite people to these sessions so that we can talk more about it. Carrie Toronto, serving, Rwandan youth who are also here. And last but not least, Black Esteem. And that's my personal organization. And you can visit our website and see how we support Black girls in STEM. So, discussion period. I know that there's some Q&A for me, and I'm ready for it so that we can talk. And just, this is a takeaway to go home with. Thinking through some of the ideas we've discussed today. Number one, in what ways will you support the Black youth in your life to survive? And number two, in what ways will you support the Black youth in your life to thrive? And I just want to end off by saying, so these are the things that you'll go back, in your own personal time and reflect. You can even use these questions as conversation starters for when you meet in your own personal networks. And I want to quote an educator that I was speaking to the other day, and that goes by the name of Lisa Cole. And I want to quote Lisa Cole. And she was referring to the fact that we need to forget about pipelines. First A, then B equals C. And thinking of, schools and parents and how that pipeline is, is progressing. Because what happens is by the time our students or our youth are finished this path, what happens is many of them get lost in the pipeline. Because, there are holes is what she was referring to. But she said, we need to look at the relationships, not like a pipeline between community educators and students and parents, but looking at it more like an ecosystem where all of us are important stakeholders that provide something essential and necessary to be able to foster and cultivate the success and well-being of our Black youth. So I'm going to finish on that note. And Lydia, we can go right into any questions or comments or feedback that we can talk about.
Yes, yeah, we have like few questions, and I know we do apologize. We have used, more time than expected. However, this conversation is really important. It's a very sensitive conversation, but we really need to have this conversation in order to know how we can support our youth, our children. Thank you so much, Shayle. I feel like I'm very emotional, especially whenever a topic about, our youth, children is addressed. It's really something close to our heart. And yeah, before I move on with the questions, if you have a young girl, you better connect with Black Esteem. They have like 3 programs to really, prepare your young girls, if you hear, Black STEAM, you're gonna hear science, technology, all of that. Check out their website. I shared that under the chat, even with Carrie, all of that, there are resources to really help us to really mentor and help our kids in a way. So yeah, and the other thing, if they're young enough to experience it, they're young enough to have a conversation. That was so powerful. It doesn't matter, they're 2 years old, 5 years old, 13 years old, conversation is always a conversation. I'm gonna start with the first question from Imanzi. No, I think, one second, I'm gonna start, based on how the questions came in. 1 second. Yes, Nadia shared the first question. 1 second. Yeah, how can we advocate for our, I'm gonna give you like no more than 2 minutes to respond to every question because we have few questions here. how can we advocate for our Black youth, children's schools, children's aid societies, criminal justice systems, and other systems? So how can we advocate for our Black youth in that way?
So I actually would say to that is getting really familiar with policy. Because a lot of times where we're falling short is we're not familiar with the policies and the procedures that are put in place that are actually adding to the deficit of that Black youth are experiencing, right? So in any institution, I'm going to speak, from the position of an educator. When you get into, your children are enrolled in school boards, take a look at what their discrimination policies are. What are their equity policies? What are their anti-racism policies or the racism policies? Like really taking a look at that, really knowing the rights of our youth and our children, because you can't advocate for them if you don't know what the rights are and what they're entitled to. So I would say that's the first thing. And then also reaching out to those organizations and asking the basic question, how can I help? How can I partner? How can I be, of assistance? And any organization, who welcomes parental engagement will, put your efforts to good use. I know for sure if you reached out to my organization, I would, because we need that type of partnership.
Second question. Thank you so much, Shayle. Next question.
Thank you.
So it's from Imanzi. Are Afrocentric schools a solution to support our Black children? How can we advocate for our Black youth in the mainstream school system?
In the mainstream school system. Okay, so you know what? I actually used to work at an Afrocentric school, which is actually interesting that you should ask that. And I feel like what I've learned and my professional growth being in that space has really contributed a lot to the empowerment and of our students. My experience there, those were some of the most confident students I've ever experienced in my 10-year career, the most. So I'm not going to say whether it's a good idea or bad idea, but what I will say is I really believe it depends on the structure and the framework that school is predicated on. We have to look at structure, institutional structure, to be able to make that decision. And the structure is not the same, right? For everyone, for every institution, I should say, or every school. What I will say in mainstream, so if you are not on parent council in your school, get on parent council, because parent council has a very strong voice in the affairs that happen in school spaces. So that I would say is the first thing, right? Really looking to attend the meetings that happen that your board may offer, right? Looking to attend that, because those meetings are where you can actually put some of your input. Thinking about how to partner with even the principal at your schools or the schools that your children attend, to say, hey, I have a Black child in this space and I would really like to know like what is being done to support the well-being and the academic success of my Black child. And if things are not being done, how can I add my expertise as a parent to be able to do so? So those are just a few options that can happen. I know in the Toronto board, there are supports such as community support workers and social workers. Those are great people to tap into and partner with, so that you can see things happen on a board level to support your child.
Thank you so much. And Pamela just shared, thank you for sharing all the tools. It can be terrifying watching, hearing everything that's going on while raising Black kids. Yeah, you're really absolutely right. But at the end of the day, we're here not only, to create solutions and actually, learn better ways we can support our kids. It is our responsibilities before it's the responsibility of anybody else. Yeah, before I move on, I have like 3 questions.
Okay.
One was from somebody from Facebook. Do you think isolation and family stress has anything to do with poor parenting?
Okay, so, okay, do anything with poor parenting. I you know, to be honest, I don't like, you know, labeling parents as bad parents or poor parenting, because I feel like there are especially when we talk about in the context of Black parents, there are so many systemic things that are really impacting the way that many of us parent. There's a lot of those barriers in place. But when I think about, you know, stressors, and, you know, parenting, maybe there is a lack of parenting happening in the space and that's causing stress on our kids. I definitely, yes, do believe that that is true. But then we need to also look in what are some of these stressors. When we have our Black, you know, mothers going into the workplace and working twice as hard and being compensated half the amount, and working, you know, shift work, because many of our Black mothers are in jobs that require shift work, right? Many of them are in jobs that are like caretaking work as well. They're caring for other people. And there's a lot of fatigue that comes with that. So by the time they get home, they're so tapped out because they barely have any, you know, strength for their own children. And then not to mention all the racism that we're experiencing on a daily basis. You know, it takes a toll on you, you know, and thinking about, you know, having to be in spaces where you're constantly having to be concerned about how other people are receiving you. When you go to work, what to say and what not to say, how to present yourself, how to wear your hair, because all of that takes, you know, plays a role in the stressors that you're facing and how you parent, right? So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's really my take on it. You're muted, Lydia.
Yeah, the same person also asked another question. That's Maurice from Facebook. He said, my other question, parents knowing that their kids spend most times outside, and when the kids are home, parents don't even get the time to sit with them and see where they are in life. Most kids are exposed to things they are not supposed to get access to at a specific age. Like, for example, now the internet is accessible to kids at any point. Do you think parents should take further approach or method of parenting? That was another question, but thank you.
Absolutely. Who asked that question?
Maurice.
Thank you, Maurice, for that. Absolutely. I think that parents should definitely take more control in what your kids are watching. Not all because their friends are doing it, that means they have to do it too. You know, looking at those restrictions, we have, you know, a lot of our youth that are underage that are on Instagram and they're on Snapchat and they're, you know, on Twitter, and they're everywhere. And so, you know, there definitely we need to be more strategic in and intentional about how we monitor, you know, our kids when they're using these platforms, because they're engaged in things that are not age appropriate. And so that's on one end of it, right? Talking with them and, you know, scheduling a time. I know life is busy, but we need to schedule times to check in with our kids. And that needs to happen on a daily basis, because even if your children are not accessing certain things in your homes, they are accessing it at school. So speaking to them, you know, is a good way to intervene. You know, many of our youth are struggling with anxiety and depression. How will we know if we're not having conversations with them and if those conversations are not frequent? So thank you so much for that question, Maurice.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's all the questions that I have. We can give a chance to anybody who would like to speak, sharing anything, because we are close to the end. Any question you can add to the chat, or, you know, ask directly. I have, you know, allowed everyone to speak up. Any question, guys? Welcome. Or even any idea how we can serve you better.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Lydia. Just wanted to say thank you to Shayle for her presentation. I think it was very, it's an eye opener, but at the same time, there are things that we know, but we don't know how to sort of go about it. And I think highlighting the tools I think one thing that really touches me is the you know, the feeling of powerlessness sometimes that parents feel. You know all these things, but then you feel like, okay, how do I go about it? You know, you talked about the justice system. You know, I used to work in the courthouse, and I would see files. You would have like a Black youth and a white youth with the same crime, and you would see such a disproportionate sentencing, and you don't know how to go about it, and you're like, okay, how is this even possible? You see that it's the same thing, but you know, one is probation and the other one is just a slap on the wrist, and it's like, okay, so this Black youth is now on a path that sets him at a disadvantage for long term. And then, you know, you talked about children's aid societies, you know, and the percentage of, you know, Black kids who are at care. We're talking about, you know, Rwandan who come to Canada, and that transition is not well taken care of. And then you see the kids being taken away just because of things that in Rwanda would have been normal, like a kid playing outside barefoot. But here it's child abuse. So those conversations don't happen. And then just that family spirals out of control and everything just, you know, so I think I leave this session feeling like there's a lot of work to do. And I think each one of us has a part in it. So, you know, I urge all of us to look at the resources and try to be involved as we can in our small circles, because it really affects our kids. And, you know, I really appreciate it. So thank you for this session. And I think it's another, hopefully Lydia can set up another session where we can continue on, because there's still a lot to unpack. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Nadia. And I just wanted to say one thing before, Lydia, we move on. But, you know, there in my line of work, I do often experience parents that, you know, come to me and say, hey, like, I don't know what to do. I feel like, you know, it's wrong, and I don't know how to name it. And I don't know how to, I bring attention to it, and I don't know how to address it, and I need change to be made, and I just don't know how. And it's that sense of powerlessness, right? So for those of us that, you know, we're talking about, and I'm referring to critical race theory, you know, we have positions, we sit in positions, Nadia, people like you, myself that we know of, Lydia, we're sitting in positions of power and positions of privilege. How are we leveraging our skills, our resources, our positions, our titles, our expertise, our knowledge to be able to make sure that we are partnering with those in our community that don't have that, to be able to better support our youth?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shayle. You know, it's a very, as Nadia's saying, you know, our community members, leaders that are here, Shayle is here. We can always share Shayle with our community, no problem. So we can continue the conversation in other ways. You know, she's really good, especially, you know, helping kids, youth in education, and, you know, parents. Sometimes when I have school meetings, I have to call her. I'm like, tell me what to ask. I see this, I don't know what to say. And actually, it's been helping me a lot, even to be able to ask help that is right for my kids. Yes. So, yeah, I have Sibo. I think that would be the last question. Sibo, welcome. Yes.
Hi, actually, I don't want to be long, but please, you're very welcome to cut me if I tend to be. I just want to say thank you so much to both our guests tonight for what you shared and what you brought us today. You mentioned a lot of things that we really need, and for me, when I met Shayle, I told her she's my Oprah because of what she represents, of what she does. Really, I would like to invite her to share what she does with more people, because I know it's gonna help them. If you can put like your website in the chat, really. You said if anyone has an idea or a proposition on how to help. You've been talking about combining the people in our communities who are skilled in different things to be together with people who are willing to help so we can do something. I'm not sure if this is like the right time to say, but I had an idea because the entire month of Black History Month, I've been having this event that talks about the history of Black people in different ways, in politics, in justice, in arts, in songs, in harmony, physical exercises, different kind of things that we do, even touch spirituality as well. So we've been learning a lot of things about Black people since a long time ago to the present. We even mentioned the future. What we are doing is we're creating a program that's going to be like long as a week. We're going to put all those things together, put a summary of it, and make it like a program for a week. And we want to invite the youth who wants to join to learn more about like African, not just African, but Black culture from everywhere in the world to join. It's gonna be like, let's say $1 for every child, and they have to pay themselves. So they can do the dishes home, they can, I don't know, do the snowing, and anything they wanna do, their parents are gonna help them with $1, and they're gonna pay themselves to receive that that information, if I might say, and we are touching every field. So I might invite you if you guys want, if you have children, if you have nephews and nieces, or if you yourself would like to attend. I thought it was something I might propose because it was joining both what you're saying and what we're planning to do. So if anyone wants, yeah, if Lily is okay, I can share my email
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
anyone who would like.
Please,
Okay.
please
Absolutely.
send me the details.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Sibo. You know, we have to combine, you know, our skills, you know, talent, everything. I feel like this is a great moment. Everyone, you know, in our community, everywhere, you know, Shayle touched based on that. You know, she's not Rwandan, but she's here to really you know, share with us, you know, so much information, like, you know, in terms of knowing what are your rights, you know, what are the policies that support this or go against this need. So I think it's really important that we work together for the best of our community, for the best of our children. And thank you so much, Sibo. She's been organizing, imagine the entire month, every night,
Thank
French
you,
and
Sibo.
English. So that's
Yes.
really, really amazing. Thank you so much. I think, you know, we are, you know, concluding our conversation. I'm gonna ask, you know, Shayle to say something. Thank you so much, Nadia, for taking your time, for being here with us, for opening your heart to, you know, to share with our community. Again, if you are here from Toronto, Hamilton, GTA, you better send me an email because we have like something for you. Everyone from that area here, please send me an email. We would like to really bless your home with something to take care of your self-care and your family. Please let us know. And other people from different areas, we know we have people from Rwanda, we have people from, you know, Europe. Please, you know, we're gonna get there. You support us, we promise you, we're gonna get, you know, we're gonna be able to accomplish more for our community. Shayle, if you can share the last word, that would be grateful. Thank you.
Well, you know what? I just want to say, first of all, Nadia, thank you for being on panel. So hopefully in the future we get to work together. Thank you, you know, partnering with Beyond the Veil, which is, you know, my crew, my tribe, my team. So it's always good to be a part of that. And I just really want to say that I know this is all overwhelming, and I know it just seems like with every new incident that happens and that we're seeing being publicized, that it's never ending. But what I can say is that we as the Black communities, you know, if we can just really get together and put our resources together, we would be able to move mountains. And it really is time for us to stop working in isolation and really work together for the greater good of Black youth, Black children, Black women, Black men, everybody and everything Black. We need to just work together. So that's really just all I wanted to say, and just thank you for having me. And I hope we can continue more of these conversations as we go.
Absolutely. Everyone have a nice Saturday. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Especially the Carrie team, we really appreciate your support. You know, whatever you see here, they're supporting us, you know, in any way to make sure that these events are successful. Thank you so much.